Sighfu has been a name that's been growing a lot more over the past few years amongst indie hip-hop listeners. His experimental and outlandish and bizarre approach to hip-hop and other genres that blend in together has really caught people's attention. There's a somewhat abstract vibe to what he does. There's an intricate detail that goes into his work as well. So far, not really been for me, unfortunately. Wasn't that keen on Ensley, and then the album that he dropped last year was, well, yeah, I just no, I didn't enjoy it at all. Like, yeah, we'll move on, because I know some of his fans will probably not want to hear me go through my opinions on that one. But as ever, I've always been the same with music. I'm not just going to write an artist off just because there's been a couple of albums that I don't think I'm personally that invested in or that I'm personally as attached to. I always like to try and pick out the potential in an artist generally, unless it's a consistent theme that they've dropped multiple albums in a row that I've just not liked. A good example would be Logic. At this point, I don't have any reason to review anything Logic does because I've just disliked almost everything I've heard him put out. So what's the point in wasting my time? But with an artist like Pink Siifu, who I think is, you know, growing their kind of artistic approach, you know, they're willing to change things, they're willing to do new things. It's usually something that I'm more invested in because I think, well, at the moment, I don't really like it, but later on down the line, I can see where they're going to go and I can see that they could be good. Case in point, Gumbo. This is the first album I've heard from Mr. Pink Siifu, where I've actually thoroughly enjoyed what this guy has put out. It was brought to my attention mostly because I was seeing people say that it was different. There was nothing like anything on this album from the previous albums, and that was where I was like, okay, yeah, this guy's obviously willing to turn different corners, take new directions, because obviously it's quite a big claim to make, and the claim is true. This really is quite different. Immediately from the get-go, you get this really psychedelic, whirlwindy, bizarre vocal approach that he's got going on in the first track. It's so slurred, it's so sluggish, it's druggish, and I'm just like waiting to see where this album's going to go, because when I first heard that track I was like, what is this album going to be like? It's an interesting setup, if you can even call it that, because it actually doesn't really set up the rest of the album. Sure, that approach does come back in his delivery, but the first few tracks past that are just hard as nails in your face bangers. Wayan Bros just comes charging in with that really brash and harsh beat that just kind of takes you aback, but you are just there like, yeah. You've got the continuation of that with Roscoe with an almost Playboy Carti delivery approach on this one, where he's kind of just like, you know, doing the usual ad-lib thing that Playboy Carti does with the, you know, the repetition of saying similar lines, kind of like, you know, kind of like splurting them out in a way that Carti does. Lots of talk on the projects, the repetition is there. I'm not trying to say that everything about this track is like Playboy Carti, but I'm just saying if you are a fan of what Playboy Carti does, you could definitely find something to enjoy about this track. It's just so animated, it's just so lively, it's just not to be taken too seriously, even though some of the lyrics really do pop out as if he does have something interesting to say. But I think because of how speedily the track moves and how kind of like, you know, flash-like a lot of the lines are, it's hard to really keep up. It's kind of like a psh, 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 like a flash that you get from a camera. That was kind of what I was trying to say there. Yeah, and it really continues for the first half of the album. There are just more playful, just exciting moments that really do pop in great ways, and it's just a lot of fun for the first few tracks. Back isn't quite as hard, but it's groovy as hell. The lyrics are basic as fuck on this one, talking about different kind of bitches that he likes. It's kind of funny, it's very tongue-in-cheek, it's, you know, obviously a little bit sexist, let's be honest, but I think he kind of sells it with his delivery. He's kind of got a bit of a coolness, a bit of a swagger to this one that I think is pretty enjoyable. You do have some really like short burst tracks that I think probably could be extended or even really taken away. I don't really think for show 7, I think it is, really adds much that the other tracks hadn't already done. And given that it's only a minute, it just feels like very, like, you know, in and out. And I think if you just extended it or even took it away, I don't really think the album really would have suffered. He does bring that really druggy, psychedelic approach, which I think is really effective actually, back on tracks like Doing Too Much or Doing Too Much. It really adds to the overall effect of the song and just shows a different side to what he can do. He's honestly genre defying a lot of the time on this album. Like, he's going from one thing to another very quickly, and I think tracks like this really show that versatility. Because like I say, he's obviously trying something a bit different this time around, and it is paying off, but within that one album, he's trying multiple different things. I do think the second half, or maybe like the mid section of the album, takes a very unique turn though, in that, you know, the genre blending that he's doing just takes a 180 really. It spins around and he just does something very different with tracks like Living Proof, which has an unmistakably, just can't be disputed, very distinct instrumental from The Alchemist. It's just so him. Like, even without seeing his name credited on the track, you'd hear this track, and if you know his style, you'd be like, it's the Alk, it's Alk. It's the guy. But that soulful turn that the album takes is just very different to what the first half of the album was doing. And while I think it's welcomed, I just would have liked to have seen what he would have done if he just took the bangers and just went with it the whole way through. I think that would have made for a very interesting album. Because while I like Scared, I do think it goes on a bit long. I think the soulfulness is lovely. It just reminds me of, like, I think something maybe Tyler Creator would do, where he has one idea but just extends it out a bit too long or something, like on some of the longer tracks on his most recent album. I just think if he condensed it, probably would have been better. Smile and Call the Bro are two tracks that go for a more chilled out, laid back, very vibey aesthetic, which again I think really work. At this point though, he's pretty much telling us that he's not a one-trick pony guy. Like, he's not just going to keep us, you know, knowing where the album's going in. You know, he doesn't want us to be thinking, oh, this album's predictable, because it's clearly not. And then once you hit that point, you're thinking, okay, the album's settled into it. But it doesn't, because you get a few of those banger moments coming back with Voicemails Uptown. The first section, I'm telling you, man, sounds so much like something Pierre Bourne would do, and then the track transitions into a completely different beat. I actually think the first section had a better instrumental though, so I would have liked to have seen that just ride out for even longer, to be honest. But still, the track overall is good, keeps you on your toes once again. And Bravo feels like something Thugger would do, honestly, which I'm usually a big fan of Thugger, but I think actually the hook on this track is a little bit grating and takes me out of the song a little bit. But yeah, once we get back to Big Ol', this is a bouncy, enlightening banger. We're getting that approach from Pink Sighfu again, that I think is actually probably the best aspect of this album, just in really unleashing and letting out that carefree side that I think really works for so many of these tracks, that really creates some of the most fun hip-hop tracks you'll probably hear this year. And as an overall album, I think it's clearly not the most cohesive thing, in that he's kind of bouncing around different things, but generally though, I wouldn't say it's all over the place. It actually has a pretty cohesive feel. It's not like the genres that he's doing are always the same, but the feel of the album actually doesn't feel like it's going all over the place as much as it actually is. It's pretty impressive how he manages to create that effect while also maintaining this unpredictability, the exciting feel that the album gives you. Where's he going next? What's the next track gonna do? It's a pretty good album overall, honestly. I think he is starting to show how versatile he is as an artist, and I think that is only going to work in his favor in the long run. And I think overall this album is very enjoyable. I'm going to go 7 out of 10. I think this could definitely be something people absolutely fall in love with. I think you can get a lot out of this, a lot of replayability, to be honest, because again, if you want something that's just going to take you all over the place, while also, again, feeling cohesive in a weird way, then I think you're going to enjoy this. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I think it is really good. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you guys think. Thank you for watching. As always, do subscribe if you have not already. Have a good day and goodbye.